will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Algeria has called in Geneva for an immediate end to the ongoing barbaric aggression against the Gaza Strip, calling on the international community to activate the mechanisms of accountability against the Israeli occupier. Scores of Palestinians were killed in the Gaza Strip over the last 24 hours as a result of the ongoing Israeli genocide in the region, as most attempts by humanitarian organizations to bring essential supplies into the Gaza Strip have been rejected. Sudan's Transitional Council President General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has announced that Khartoum had been liberated following the recapture of the capital's airport from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Samani. Algeria has called in Geneva for an immediate end to the aggression against the Gaza Strip and to the illegitimate Zionist presence in the occupied Palestinian territories, inviting the international community to assume its full legal responsibility and to activate the mechanisms of accountability against the Israeli occupier. Amina Bourisha has the details.
During the general debate on Item 7 on the agenda of the 58th session of the Human Rights Council, Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations office in Geneva, Rachid Bledhen, expressed Algeria's strong condemnation of the occupying powers' violation of the ceasefire and renewed aggression on Gaza, which has caused hundreds of casualties. He also denounced repressive policies including blockade, forced displacement, and annexation, aimed at eliminating the Palestinian cause. Additionally, he condemned efforts to Judaize East Jerusalem and demographic changes, reinforcing apartheid, calling for an immediate end to the aggression and Israel's illegal presence in Palestinian territories, in line with international law and UN resolutions.
Algeria strongly condemns the occupying powers' violation of the ceasefire agreement and the renewed aggression against the Gaza Strip, which has resulted in hundreds of deaths and injuries. It also denounces the oppressive, discriminatory, and settlement policies and practices aimed at eliminating the Palestinian cause, such as blockade, starvation, destruction, ethnic cleansing, forced displacement, collective punishment, and the annexation of Palestinian territories. Additionally, Algeria condemns attempts to Judaize East Jerusalem and demographic changes intended to entrench the apartheid system. It denounces the blatant violations of international law in all its branches and calls for the immediate cessation of the aggression against Gaza and the illegal Israeli presence in Palestinian territories in accordance with the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice and the relevant UN General Assembly resolution.
Mr. Bledhen urged the international community to enforce UN resolutions, hold the occupying Zionist entity accountable, and support Gaza's reconstruction. He stressed that any plan must ensure Palestinians' rights to remain in their lands and the return of the displaced, reaffirming that lasting peace depends on ending the Israeli occupation.
We once again call on the international community to fully assume its legal responsibilities implementing the opinions and orders of the International Court of Justice, enforce United Nations resolutions, and activate accountability mechanisms against the occupying Zionist entity. We also urge the same international community to provide the necessary political, financial, and material support for the reconstruction of Gaza and to make it livable again after the devastation caused by the brutal aggression. Furthermore, we emphasize that any plan for rebuilding Gaza must ensure the Palestinians' right to remain on their land and the return of displaced persons. Finally, Algeria reaffirms from this platform that the only plan to achieving a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace lies exclusively in ending the Israeli occupation of Palestinian and all occupied Arab territories.
وجميع الأراضي العربية المحتلة.
The crisis in Gaza is a stark reminder of the ongoing suffering and injustice faced by the Palestinian people. Lasting peace cannot be achieved without addressing the root causes of the conflict and ensuring full restoration of Palestinian rights. On several occasions, Algeria expressed her unwavering support for Palestine, emphasizing that true stability can only come through a just and comprehensive resolution that upholds the principles of freedom, dignity, and self-determination.
The United Nations Human Rights Council has condemned the serious violations committed by the Zionist entity in the Palestinian territories and the Golan Heights and their repercussions under international law, reiterating its rejection of ongoing crimes against the Palestinians and the violation of the ceasefire agreement. The details with Masoud Sharfi.
At its 58th session, under the agenda item relating to human rights situation in the occupied Palestinian territories and the occupied Syrian Golan, the members of the Council reiterated their rejection of the ongoing war crimes, the violation of the ceasefire agreement, and the killing of Palestinian civilians against a backdrop of international calls for firm action. At the opening of this session, the representative of the High Commissioner examined reports published by the Officer of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territory, including the expansion of illegal settlements and the land seizure, as well as the need to hold all war criminals to account. The director of the Global Operation Division at the Office of the High Commissioner of the Human Rights, Ma'arif Sharif, called on the occupier to cease all settlement activities.
Israeli settlement growth continues at an ever-increasing rate and, as found by the International Court of Justice, constitutes ongoing internationally wrongful acts by Israel. This represents a profound failure of the international community of states and its rules-based order, including in relation to the prohibitions on annexation and discrimination, as well as to the fulfillment of Palestinians' right to self-determination. The High Commissioner for Human Rights recommends again that Israel cease immediately all new settlement activity, evacuate all settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory, and make reparations for the damage caused by decades of illegal settlement.
The representatives of the members of state of the Council condemned the continued illegal occupation of Palestinian territory and denounced the aggression and crimes against humanity. Regarding the occupied Syrian Golan, Mr. Sharif said the displaced people must be allowed to return to their home and recover their properties.
Through this resolution, the Council called upon Israel to cease changing the physical character, demographic composition, institutional structure, and legal status of the occupied Syrian Golan, to immediately seize all settlement-related plans and activities, and to comply with all relevant resolutions. It emphasized that the displaced population of the occupied Syrian Golan must be allowed to return to their homes and to recover their property. The report summarizes the responses received to requests for information about the implementation of the resolution.
The report by the Human Rights Office has found that the Israeli occupation last year ratcheted up settlement of the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, transferring its own population into the territory and unlawfully demolishing Palestinian homes, while settler violence increased in a climate of continuing impunity.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, has said that the Zionist occupation has rejected all attempts to deliver humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, which has been suffering from unprecedented famine. It emphasized that essential supplies are running out and some will only last a few days more, unless shipments to the Gaza Strip resume. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Prisoners Club alerted that the Palestinian detainees currently held in the prisons of the Israeli occupation are prey to the rapid spread of scabies, a highly contagious parasitic skin disease, as well as other infectious diseases due to medical negligence on the part of the occupation's prison management. Said Bougazi has the details.
Based on statements made by released prisoners and visits by lawyers, the Palestinian Prisoners Club said in a press release quoted by WAFA that some detainees were suffering from serious health problems and medical negligence in detention centers such as Megiddo, Ofer and Damon. children recently released from Megiddo prison said that most of them had serious health problems and faced difficult and tragic conditions of detention. According to the Prisoners Club, the detention system deliberately deprives prisoners, including children and women, of the conditions that can help reduce the spread of disease, including clean food, hygiene, and the like. In addition, the club pointed out that the continued prevalence of disease among prisoners and medical negligence will inevitably lead to the martyrdom of an unprecedented number of Palestinian detainees, which constitutes a genocide. In this respect, the Palestinian Prisoners Club holds the Zionist occupation forces entirely responsible for the fate of thousands of Palestinian detainees, reiterating its call on the international human rights system to put an end to this situation and to the ongoing genocide in the prisons and camps of the Zionist occupation.
Sudan's Transitional Council President General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has announced that Khartoum had been liberated following the recapture of the capital's airport from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. General al-Burhan declared Khartoum liberated after the army recaptured key locations including the airport, presidential palace and intelligence headquarters. Army spokesperson Nabil Abdallah confirmed the airport's full security after RSF control since April 2023. The nearly two-year conflict has caused thousands of deaths, displaced over 14 million people, and triggered a severe humanitarian crisis. In another development, the UN mission in South Sudan has warned of a looming widespread conflict as forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar continue to clash. Machar was arrested by government forces in Juba amid escalating tensions. In a recent address at an informal dialogue in New York, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres emphasized the urgent need for action following the adoption of the Pact for the Future. He highlighted the growing challenges posed by conflicts, climate disasters, and funding shortfalls of the Sustainable Development Goals. Guterres called for renewed commitment from member states to address these pressing issues and implement the pact effectively. Masoud Sharfi has more.
During his remarks, Guterres outlined the significant challenges facing the international community. He noted that conflicts and climate-related disasters are intensifying, exacerbating the plight of vulnerable population worldwide. The Sustainable Development Goals, which aim to address global issues such as poverty and inequality, are currently off track, with funding levels falling short of what is needed to achieve them. Guterres pointed out that geographical divisions and a lack of trust among nations are hindering effective actions, with some questioning the value of international cooperation. Guterres reported the progress made since the adoption of the Pact for the Future, outlining 4 key areas of focus: peace and security, finance for development, youth engagement, and technology. He highlighted the establishment of a principal-level steering committee to oversee 6 working groups dedicated to these areas. The committee aims to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs and address emerging threats to peace and security.
Adopting the pact was the beginning of the process, not the end. And today I want to focus on what we have done over the last 6 months and what we need to do. We face a long list of challenges. Conflicts and climate disasters are intensifying. Sustainable development goals are far off track, as is the funding required to achieve them. Geopolitical divisions and mistrust are blocking effective action, with some actively questioning the value of international cooperation and the multilateral system itself. But let me be very clear. It is exactly because of these divides and these mistrusts that the Pact for the Future and the 2 parallel documents are more important than ever.
On the financial front, Guterres outlined actions taken to improve the international financial system and support developing countries. He mentioned the establishment of an expert group to address debt relief, which is crucial for the successful implementation of the pact. The group is expected to propose actionable outcomes in the coming weeks, with a full report due in June ahead of the Financing for Development conference in Spain.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Jusur or Bridges, where we explore the rich traditions that